These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. For those of you out there that are truck guys like me, I want to talk to you about one of our newest sponsors, Decked. If you don't know Decked, they make bomb-proof drawer systems to keep your gear organized and safely locked away in the back of your truck. Clothes, rifles, packs, kill kits can all get organized and at the ready so you don't get to your hunting spot and waste time trying to find stuff. We all know that guy. Don't be that guy. They also have a line of storage cases that fit perfectly in the drawers. We use them for organizing ammunition, knives, glass and equipment, extra clothing, and camping stuff. You can get a 2-drawer system for all dimensions of full-size truck beds, or a single drawer system that fits mid-size truck beds. And, maybe best of all, they're all made in the USA. So, get decked and get after it. Check them out at decked.com. Shipping is always free. Welcome back to the show, Coryelle Rogers. Coryelle, you were on the second ever Six Ranch podcast, and in my infancy of this game, I managed to not record your sweet voice, and I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We also had a windstorm come through, so now we're in this recording studio that's quiet, not in Hell's Canyon.
Windstorms have kind of been a hallmark of this podcast. Like, I've done a lot of them in weather events.
I feel like it's fitting.
Yeah, it kind of is. And these microphones, you know, they try hard. They try hard. But, I mean, that's just the nature of recording these shows kind of wherever I'm at. And a lot of times that means gnarly weather, and we're just going to do it.
Yeah, that's very true. Are these the same headsets?
They are.
Really?
Yeah.
The whole time?
Yeah.
That was at least 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That is crazy. I can't believe your podcast has been going that long. That I've owed you this podcast for 5 years.
Because that's how long we've been talking about this one that we're about to step off into. Tell me a little bit about your educational background.
Yeah, so I went to Washington State and I studied animal science there. Like most girls who think they want to be a veterinarian.
Mm-hmm. Is that a good bachelor's degree to become a vet? Animal science?
I think it's an okay one to become a veterinarian. Yeah. I think a lot more science, you could do a lot more science focus, whereas animal science is more production focused. I learned how to preg check cows. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I learned animal behavior, feeding, and nutrition. So, like, a lot of that is valuable to being a veterinarian. But really, when you're applying to vet school, they judge you on, are you good at biochem? Yeah. Are you good at organic chemistry? So I think you could take that sort of focus if you actually want to become a veterinarian, which I did not. So
that was your undergrad?
Yep.
And then you went to grad school?
Grad school for healthcare policy and administration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bit of a turn. I don't know if that's a left turn or a right turn, but it's a turn.
It was a turn.
Yeah.
A good one. I'm thankful now, for sure. I love my job, and I'm in finance and get to be in human medicine and try to make a difference in our healthcare, which we talked a lot about this morning. There's a lot of problems, and we do a lot of good too. So
yeah, a lot of good.
Yeah,
a lot of good, and it's hard. It's hard to see the good sometimes.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's largely invisible, which is the idea of it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But the theme of today's show is animal facts.
And I don't know if I'm overly qualified. I think you know a ton about animals too, but we'll have some good conversations.
Well, let's start it off.
Okay. I got one special for you.
Okay.
To start off. Have you ever heard of Berserk llama syndrome?
Berserk llama syndrome.
Yeah. real thing. I know how much you love llamas and alpacas, so I just wanted to kick it off with that one because it's a behavioral condition.
Mm-hmm.
If you bottle feed llamas, they become very aggressive and and homicidal towards their owners.
Homicidal.
Yeah.
Like they want to kill them.
Yes. And that's what I thought of this morning when you talked to us about the man who butchered his llama and ate it.
Yeah.
Might have been a berserk llama.
Could have been. Yeah. I mean, that might have been a contest and the llama lost. Interesting. So if they're bottle fed, it doesn't end up well for them.
Yeah. And I think we see that in horses sometimes too, you know, orphan foals. I'm sure, you know, from growing up on a ranch, sometimes they have big behavioral problems.
They definitely
have
like boundary issues.
Exactly.
Like they don't understand personal space, and there's usually some entitlement that comes with those horses that get bottle fed. And it's a gargantuan task as well to bottle raise a horse.
Yeah. It's like a newborn, and they're young they nurse for a long time. So yeah, but the boundary issues, and they're big animals, and they become pushy, and they kind of always have, I think, what you would call homeschooler syndrome if they were bottle-fed full.
BLS, Berserk Llama Syndrome.
Yeah, there you have. That's my only llama fact, because
I
wanted you to know that they maybe are evil.
Okay, so what I'm gathering here is that if you have an orphan llama, you might just need to let it go.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you try and save it, it's going to end up potentially trying to kill people.
Yeah. Part of nature. I mean, they're a little bit aggressive anyway.
Yeah, they've got an attitude.
At least from my experience. And I don't know. I have no desire to own llamas in the future, but I think people also really like their llamas sometimes.
Yeah, that might be some kind of like toxoplasmosis, Stockholm syndrome type thing. But
well, should we talk about toxoplasmosis?
Why don't we?
That's an animal fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a scary one.
It is.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm newly pregnant, and one of the first things the doctors ask is, do you have cats? Because toxoplasmosis is a big deal, but many cat owners have it. And it causes them to become obsessed with their cats, from my understanding.
Yep.
But you can also get it from red meat, which is why you can't eat undercooked red meat.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can't eat it when you're pregnant.
When you're pregnant. Yeah. I mean, and you could get it on a normal day too, but it's important while you're pregnant.
It also affects fear receptors, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So this is an interesting thing between like the cat and mouse dynamic, is that if mice in the area get toxoplasmosis, they'll lose their fear of the cats in the area.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know that. And then the cats are more likely to contract it because they'll catch those mice.
Right.
Interesting.
But then it can be a good thing for the cat because it's going to decrease the fear receptors in their prey base in that area.
Yeah.
And this also happens. This isn't just a domestic thing. This happens out in the wild too.
Interesting. Yeah. Parasites are crazy.
Yeah. Fascinating.
They can do have a lot of effects on
They're smart.
Yeah.
Like that. We talk about intelligence. I get criticized a lot for enjoying hunting and eating octopus because everybody watched that documentary.
Oh yeah.
They're like, do you realize how smart they are? Well, how are we going to define intelligence, and should we only eat dumb things?
Yeah.
If you look at like fungal intelligence, like this collective intelligence of mushrooms.
Yep.
Like, are we no longer going to eat mushrooms? And then look at community intelligence with something like ants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very fascinating. The intelligence of something like wheat, which might be the most successful species in the world today.
Yep.
Right. And there's a real argument to be made about whether we domesticated wheat or whether wheat domesticated human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how are we going to define intelligence? And then where are we going to draw the line?
What's too smart to eat?
If ethically it's like, oh, you're not supposed to eat smart stuff. And Yeah, octopus are smart, and I'm for sure going to keep hunting and eating them.
Yeah, and so are swine. Swine are incredibly smart.
Yeah.
And to me, I've always had some beliefs about some boundaries around that, right? Because they are intelligent. Would I rather eat a pig that's been raised by Amy and Jeremiah at Square Mile on pasture, happy, lived a really good life, rather than one that's been in a huge factory and maybe trapped in a cage while it fed its piglets? And I've been in those huge swine centers, and they're gross.
Yeah.
So
it's not a pleasant environment.
No.
But we got a lot of folks to feed too.
Yeah, we do. And so it's always, there is some I see the ethical boundaries where we can have good practice, especially for intelligent animals. But really all animals should be treated well.
Yeah.
Intelligent or not.
I mean, obviously I'm Team Square Mile too, right? We had Square Mile bacon and sausage like 20 minutes ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And bacon. Yeah.
It's lovely.
We fill our freezer with their meats once or twice a year. Because,
Animal facts.
Yeah.
What's the
awesome.
next one?
Well, I was thinking, speaking of intelligence, I guess, did you know mice can be tickled? That they discovered that at WSU, and
at WSU.
Yeah, at WSU they recorded mice giggling when they were tickled.
They giggle.
They giggle.
Wow.
I know. Isn't that interesting?
Huh. So they're an interesting critter to use for experimentation because of stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. They have, and I would even go maybe say every animal is intelligent in its own way, right? And so again, we go back to ethical issues with how any animal is treated, no matter their IQ or no matter how smart they are. And when you think, I mean, what philosopher literally defined the spark in humans by being able to laugh? Who was that? Weston's here to fact check. But then you find out mice can giggle, and you're like, oh, like animals experience a lot of emotions.
Yeah, and since we're talking about this, I feel like the ultimate goal of intelligence is survival of a species.
Yeah.
So any species that you have today has adequate intelligence to survive in a changing environment.
Yep.
Which is impressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also something we've talked about a little bit this weekend is female dogs judging you by your competence. And I love that. I mean, we know dogs are smart. Humans are so connected with their canines, I would say, specifically as pets. And then you find out your dog's judging you. I've been self-conscious ever since.
So give me an example of that.
Okay, I think it was a study in Kyoto where they found that female dogs were more likely to approach the owner if they were able to open a jar versus the one who was not able to open the jar. And so now I'm in the kitchen cooking, and Luna's sitting there watching me, and I'm like opening a jar. I'm like, oh, I definitely can't ask Weston to help me with this, because if she sees that I'm incompetent, she won't love me anymore.
Oh, that's so funny. And makes sense, right? Like, this one is going to be my teammate in the zombie apocalypse.
My protector. And I will not be a teammate in a zombie apocalypse. Just to be clear, I'm opting out of any apocalypse.
I know this is a little bit of an aside, but can you talk about the club that you founded?
Oh, yes, this is a bit of an aside. There's probably not a ton of liberals on your podcast, but my club is called Liberals for Silencers.
And what does that mean?
Well, that means any human that doesn't use a silencer is probably a little bit maladapted. In my opinion. I spent quite a few years while my husband Weston was shooting competitions, ROing, which is range officer-ing, which just means I'm trying to keep score for the guys while they shoot at these metal targets. Sometimes they're moving, sometimes they're small, sometimes they're shooting through crazy things. But anyway, that's not the point. these guys would come through with their unsilenced guns and they'll blow your eardrums out.
Yeah. Completely unnecessary.
So unnecessary.
Savages.
What'd I say last night? Thread your guns.
Yeah, thread your barrels.
Thread your barrels, boys.
Thread that thing.
Yeah. I'm not for it. Like, please put some silencers on your guns.
Okay, shout out to silencers.
And maybe the animal fact that goes with that is I'm pretty sure Luna has some hearing damage from being at those shooting competitions with me, my little sidekick.
Yeah,
And
duck dogs and pointing dogs oftentimes get hearing loss from having gunshots next to them.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen a good solution for that yet.
No, I haven't. We even looked it up, like some dog ear pro, because she came to these so often and sat there all day with me. And the best I would do is put her in the truck. But even in the truck, sometimes those guns, especially those long range, and I could never tell you what kind of guns or what ammo those people shoot, but it shakes the whole truck.
If they've got a muzzle brake on, it's brutal.
Yeah, those things. Those are the devil. So there you have it from your non-shooting liberal.
I love it.
Wife of a gun owner.
Okay, let's get back on track here. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I wanted to talk about mustelids with you because I know you love them.
I do love mustelids so much.
And you're pretty sure they're going to take over the world.
Well, my concern, and let's talk about what mustelids are, first of all. So this is the weasel family, which includes wolverines, badgers, otters, skunks, weasels, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Right? We've observed honey badgers, for example, doing things like picking locks, using tools, lots of complex problem solving that has multiple steps and requires tools. We see sea otters using rocks to open shells, and we think that all this stuff is really cute. My perspective on it is that they are in their Stone Age right now.
Yeah.
Right? If we look at human history and development, when humans started doing this kind of stuff and using stone tools to solve problems, we're like, oh, we call that the Stone Age.
Yeah.
If mustelids advance like we do, eventually they become a nuclear superpower.
Yeah.
And we do not want an animal with these attributes to have that.
Yeah, let's talk about those attributes.
Yeah, what are they?
They're kind of psychopaths, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah. My favorite one is ferrets often revisit the site of a kill. That's like a human murderer.
Yeah.
Right? Like the police are watching for the person that's like hanging around, comes back. Yeah.
And
ferrets.
Do we think that they're coming back because they had success hunting there, or is it like a nostalgia thing?
I'm sure it's like if you went to straight, like, okay, why do animals do what they do? Probably it's because it was a successful hunting site, right? But why wouldn't other animals then do the same thing?
It's creepy.
So creepy.
Ferrets. People have those as pets too.
Ew.
Yeah.
I know. We talk about often, like, the list of no's for our kids. what animals we will not have in the house. Ferrets, number one.
Yeah.
They're disgusting.
Yeah. No mustelids, no primates.
And probably no rodents. Like, do you need rabbits or hams? I guess hamsters are kind of cute, but...
Rabbits are poultry.
Rabbits are poultry?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you caught me out on that one.
Yeah.
Can we fact check that?
People like to fight me on this one. I've won money on it multiple times.
You have.
But for whatever reason,
fact.
rabbits are considered poultry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another mustelid.
Let's get back in it.
Stoats hunt for fun and live in the dens of the things they kill.
And what's a stoat?
I don't. Can you tell me what a stoat is?
Are they like a little weasel?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
they're also part of the mustelid family. I just didn't know if you had more information.
They hunt for fun and they live in the dens of the things they kill.
Yes.
That's gnarly.
So imagine these guys taking over the world.
We don't want that.
No. They're scary. Do you think cavemen did that? They might have.
Yeah.
They might have.
Probably,
killed and-
especially as Homo sapiens encountered Neanderthals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know that now that there's some Neanderthal DNA in a lot of Asians and Europeans,
Mm-hmm.
but these were two different species,
Yep.
and Neanderthals didn't make it. Like, there's some interbreeding there, but Homo sapiens probably killed them.
Yeah.
And then moved into their houses.
Yeah.
Took their stuff. And Neanderthals were bigger. They had bigger brains. They were stronger.
Yeah.
They were compassionate. Like, they took care of disabled and elderly.
Oh, interesting.
I think they were probably like the ones that I would want to hang out with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And then Homo sapiens just come along and like rape and pillage. Like, I guess survival of the fittest. But
Yeah. Do you think the Homo sapiens were smarter or just less empathetic?
maybe more aggressive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to depend on how we're going to define intelligence. And if we're going to go with, survival of the species, then you got to give the nod to Homo sapiens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think Weston has some Neanderthal in his gene pool.
I mean, probably. But I think most Europeans and Asians do.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think it was like on his, maybe I'm wrong
Northern
about
Asians.
maybe I thought it was on your dad's genetic
Hmm.
testing. I always blame his flat feet. He has the flattest feet, if anyone you've ever seen. I would think that's a Neanderthal trait, but that's not a fact.
Yeah. I don't know.
Data on the poultry is rabbits. Or rabbits are poultry.
W-
USDA classifies them as poultry.
Yeah, USDA classifies rabbits as poultry. So now
Interesting.
I'm back on top.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. What else do we have here? Did you know weasels have a weasel war dance when they hunt?
No way.
Yeah. We'll have to look up YouTube videos of it later, but
Weasel war dance?
yeah. Some more creepy things about mustelids killing.
Dude, they're in a phase right now. I'm telling you.
Okay. Should we move on from
Yeah.
mustelids?
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about? They have well-developed anal scent glands, which is gross.
Okay, that is gross. They have massive brains.
Yeah.
Like their brain to body ratio is absolutely incredible. So I would encourage folks to look up an image, or I'll post one on Instagram of a like an otter skull,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it looks like the crystal alien skulls, where it has this wonderfully elongated, like massive brain. It's like, what are you doing with all that?
Yeah, completely. I was amazed by that when we were looking just at the skulls here in your
Yeah.
studio, and they do like very large brain boxes.
And to put it into comparison for people who can't see, I have an otter skull in here that's from an animal that might have weighed 40 pounds, which was a really big otter, 45 pounds. I also have a hippo skull in here from a hippo that might have been over 3,000 pounds.
Yep.
And the brains are almost the same size.
Insane. Or you think of a horse who have walnut-sized brains.
Right.
And that's a big animal with
Mhm.
pretty small. I think cattle are right on par with that. So
Yeah,
probably mustelids are like right up there in brain size,
right.
which there is some correlation with brain size and intelligence. And again, going back to the intelligence, but all of these animals have survived for
Mhm.
a lot of years. So, I'm a horse girl, but I don't think horses are the smartest being out there.
Yeah,
They're flighty, but they're prey.
Yeah.
They're not predators.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, here's one I really love because of personal experience with it. Goats have to have their C-section incision on the left side.
Really?
Yeah. If you cut open their right, all their guts spill out.
Huh.
Yeah. And I'll never forget like going into a goat C-section and we're shaving and the vet just cuts down the right side and immediately knew
Oh, no.
it was no
Yeah.
issue. I mean,
Right.
you just shove them back in and sew it up, but guts just spilling out because everything's, when you're pregnant, all your guts are shoved
Huh.
whichever way they fit. And so all that pressure on them just causes them to spill out the side. So in order to access the placenta, you have to go through the left.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was getting like body work massage done last year.
Yeah.
And there's, some symmetry issues and like muscles and like injuries that are causing, stuff to be different from one side to the other. And this incredible gal named Kat Kurtz that works on me, she's like, I never know quite when to like stop working on symmetry, because inside the body we're not symmetrical at all.
Yeah.
The exterior gives the illusion of it, but once we get to the inside, it's like, oh, the liver's got to go over here, and the small intestine goes over here,
and your heart's over here.
It becomes pretty chaotic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah, it's interesting. Organs are very interesting.
Okay. Good to know for everybody who might have to give a C-section to a goat.
If you ever have to cut a goat open.
Yeah.
I've witnessed many animal C-sections. Goats are some of my favorite. They have multiples. Goats are just, I think, cool animals. We would love to own some goats.
Yeah, they're very popular right now.
Yeah.
They will get on top of your vehicle. They will eat stuff that you think is precious.
Okay, we had a barn out at Spokane Polo Club for many years, and our neighbors owned mini goats, our barn neighbors, and they would, just the best story of goat destruction is we're vaccinating all the horses. Weston's dad's a vet, so we have racks of vaccines set out on a picnic table, and we're doing it ourselves, and someone releases the goat herd. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, and they all come charging through and all over the picnic table, vaccines everywhere. They're destructive. They'll jump on anything, mess with anything, and they're so funny.
Yeah, they're hard to predict what their next move is going to be.
Yeah. We got married out there at the Polo Club, and it was one of my biggest fears for a wedding. I was like, what if someone releases these goats onto our wedding? Like cake everywhere, guest tables. It would have been funny. It would have been a story. I don't know if I would have thought it was funny that day.
I distinctively remember the first animal C-section that I saw, which was a cow in Montana.
Yeah.
And I was so impressed because she stood up through the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, they do.
Yeah. And I was, obviously you've got some local anesthesia and things like that going on there. But I was imagining what it would take for me to be able to go through something like that.
Yeah.
Like, no way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. And for your listeners, when many farm animals get C-sections, we cut through the flank. It's not like a human where you're laying on your back and cut straight down the middle. We're cutting kind of between the ribs and the hip bone and pulling them from there. So that's why they remain standing. Cattle are tough.
They're wicked tough.
You can't do a ton of medication if they're beef animals. Local anesthetic. But generally, you're pretty careful. You want to be careful about what you're consuming, right? So we make them comfortable, but they tolerate a lot. And a lot of what injuries or C-sections or even delivery,
yeah,
they're pretty tough.
I think fistulated cows are also...
Oh, that is a wild thing, huh?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about that real quick. I know it's not part of your list, but...
No, that's totally fine. I love talking farm animals. They are fistulated in order to kind of see... Cows have 4 chambers in their stomach, right? I couldn't list them all. Dudodium. I don't know.
Yeah, abomasum.
Yeah. But it's 4 different processes food go through. So when you put a chamber essentially into them, you're able to see that digestion process and do some research. So if you're feeding them, I don't know. I would have known so much more about this 10 years ago, but if you feed them different kinds of feeds, how it's digesting.
And if they're on the range, you can see what they've been eating, like what they've been selecting for. So to bring this into focus for you guys a little bit, this is a tube that goes from the outside of the animal, like there's a tube sticking out the side of the animal that goes through their ribs, down into their stomach, and
Yep.
it has like a plexiglass window, and you can reach in there and grab out
Yep.
with your hand what they've
Their
been
stomach
eating.
contents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned a little bit more about like how these different chambers of the stomach work, and recently kind of put it together with elk that they're getting their protein from the bacteria and protozoa and fungi that are living in their stomach. So
Yep.
they're eating these grasses and really fibrous materials that don't necessarily have very much protein in it. And they're not actually even getting much in the way of nutrition out of that. But all of these, all this microbiome stuff gets to replicate so much in the consumption of that. And when they, regurgitate their food and chew it up again, that is increasing the surface area of that fibrous matter so that the bacteria can get after it even more. And then all these excess bacteria go down into the rest of their digestive tract, and that's what they're getting their freaking protein from.
Yeah.
So
fermentation. It's basically fermentation.
So wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
So wild. Like they're just feeding bacteria so that they can eat the bacteria. And that's why they're eating the grass. They're not doing it for
I know. Yeah.
crazy.
I think cattle are so cool and maybe overlooked sometimes, but they're interesting animals.
They're performing a miracle for us
They are.
by taking grass that we cannot digest.
Yep.
And they're turning it into protein that we can eat.
Yep. And actually, one of my favorite conversations is, for example, when someone proposes maybe we should all eat vegetarian or vegan. Sometimes you drive through cattle ranges, and those are not places that we could make into crops.
Right.
Like it's rocky.
Yeah.
It's terrible landscape
It's
and
too steep for equipment.
too steep down here. Too steep. Lewiston, like those grades are huge, and you can put cattle out on them, and they make us protein.
Yeah.
And that's pretty amazing. So do I think there's a balance? Do I think probably we overconsume and throw out too much in this country? Absolutely. But also there's such a balance between what can actually be made into farmland versus what cattle can do with land that is uninhabitable.
Sure.
And I think that's a really cool part of what they do for us and providing for us.
And a lot of our farmland is just raising corn and soybeans that we can't eat anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
What are we doing here? All right. Animal facts.
Okay. Speaking of giving birth, maybe people know, but giraffes give birth standing up as well.
That's a long drop.
It's a long drop. So their calves drop and kind of drop on their heads and wakes them up. And then they can stand and start moving pretty quickly to get away from predators. Yeah.
Do giraffes have a hard time going from like laying down to standing up? Because aren't they like missing a joint or like there's something gangly about them?
They are so gangly. I'm not sure about that. That I do know a lot of animals that are prey animals like giraffes, like cattle. Those babies get up and they're walking quick.
Yeah. Very
Like,
quick.
They're up nursing and moving.
Do you know about the difference between animals that eat their placenta versus not?
No. Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about it.
Okay. So if the mother has to remain in the birth site area for a period of time after giving birth, then they're likely to eat the placenta.
Oh, so to get rid of the smells.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because a lot of these newborns don't produce a smell that predators can pick up on, right? So
Interesting.
like fawns, deer fawns don't produce a scent that coyotes can smell for a while,
Okay.
which is totally fascinating.
Yeah.
That they've kind of stayed ahead of that evolutionary curve.
So do does eat their placenta?
They do.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't actually know that.
Yeah. So it's really common with a lot of the cloven-hooved animals
Yeah.
that even though they're not meat eaters at all, they're going to consume their own placenta, which does have a nutritional benefit as well.
Yep.
But Yeah, and then if they can get up and just move off, and either bring their offspring with them, or if it's the type of offspring that doesn't require rearing, then they're not going to consume that placenta.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cattle don't consume their placentas.
Some do.
Some do.
Many do.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't think that they'll eat the whole thing, but I've seen a lot of cattle chewing on them.
Really?
Yeah.
Part of what we did, I lived at the WSU Beef Center for a year during college, and often we'd go find the placentas to check that everything was normal and healthy.
Yep.
So that's interesting. I wonder if it's also pressure based. Like those WSU beef cattle have almost zero pressure. I mean, you can many cattle on the ranches of America you could not just go up to and touch. These cattle are pretty close to pets.
and domestic livestock isn't necessarily a good case study on what critters are going to do in the wild.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That is a super interesting fact I didn't know.
Animal fact.
Animal fact.
What's the next one?
Let's look. Oh, the American bison is the only animal in which both lungs share a common cavity. I thought that was an interesting fact I came across.
Okay, so they don't have a mediastinum?
Yeah. And so
Wow.
if you get a lung shot on them, they're pretty easy to kill. They'll go down really quickly because both lungs will collapse.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That makes sense why the Plains Indians were able to be so effective on them with these little tiny
Arrows. Didn't you always wonder about that?
and short horse bows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Pretty interesting.
And I've heard about lots of archery shots on bison where they just collapse and people are mystified by it.
Yeah.
But if they don't have a mediastinum and you can create tension pneumothorax immediately by introducing an arrow and air into that pleural space, fascinating.
Yeah, I thought you'd have you been on a bison hunt?
I have not.
Yeah.
No.
I know it's on my husband's list. We would love to have a freezer of bison meat, but I think they're pretty rare to get to go on.
I love to eat bison meat, and I want a coat.
You want a bison?
I want a bison coat,
like a big fur coat.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You could sport that around town.
Just some ridiculously heavy, warm.
Yep.
Yeah. Just a big Jeremiah Johnson jacket.
Yeah, not a mustelid coat.
No, that's for the ladies.
For the ladies,
Yeah.
much softer.
They can kill their 172 ermine
Oh
so
my
that
gosh.
they can wear a fur jacket.
Oh, Weston's mom, this is kind of an offshoot, but has so many fur coats from like her grandmother's era, and they really hold up. I mean, they're beautiful and
It's infinitely sustainable.
Yeah.
All these species are still around, and a lot of the people that will criticize fur will wear a synthetic that's made out of plastic that's a petroleum derivative.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
Way
what
harder on our environment.
What are we talking about? When this thing's done, after it lasts for many, many generations, it's just going to dissolve back into the soil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely. And I am a believer in good stewardship and harvesting animals appropriately. And I think there's a lot of really good ways to harvest animals and do it appropriately and maintain populations better that way.
Yeah, if somebody can name an animal that's been trapped to extinction in North America, say in the last 130 years, be fascinated to know about it.
Yeah, that is true. Trapping is an interesting one for me. There's a lot of value to it, and also I have a hard time imagining an animal sitting in a trap stuck for a period of time before you come back to.
Yeah.
And I think all animals, humans included, suffer. They suffer towards the end, or many times.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit in my mind, right? I'm like, okay, when we harvest animals, we want them to suffer the least amount possible. And it goes back to, we should treat animals well. And then also, suffering is innate to all living beings. And so how do you how do you balance that appropriately? And I think that's trapping catches me on that a little bit.
Yeah. I never saw a wild thing sorry for itself.
Yeah. And that's very
Right.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people who, and I'm saying that this is you, but a lot of people who are critical of trapping fur bearers have no problem trapping mice or trapping rats.
Yep.
Because that's something that can affect them personally.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But if it's not something that affects them personally, say it's trapping coyotes or something along those lines, they're like, no, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Well, what if the coyotes were affecting you? And that was the best method to control that population.
Yeah.
Like, you would probably feel differently.
Yeah.
Washington State kind of got themselves in a pickle with trapping regulations a couple years back because they wrote the regulations so strictly that they weren't able to use squeeze chutes on cattle.
Oh. That's wild.
Because that was a metal device that was restraining an animal.
Interesting.
And then they're like, oh, crap, I guess we need traps.
Yeah, I guess we need to do that sometimes. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe broadly in the world, in all things, it comes to like, what's the best balance? And I think politically, I don't know, socially, everything has to do with just a balance.
Yeah.
I think too far any direction is never the right answer.
And balance is a verb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that we're always striving for but never achieve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you should silence your guns.
Yeah. No way around that.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of bears, I love bears. I think bear is my spirit animal. I think they're great.
Fantastic animal.
They're fantastic. I could go in to a long sleep every winter.
I wish that I could. Sounds so nice.
I love packing on some winter pounds. And then in the summer, going back to normal, better balance, eating lighter meals.
Mm-hmm.
I love bears that they're omnivores.
Yeah.
I think I could live off huckleberries and salmon from a stream and sometimes trash, But I think this is maybe a fact a lot of people know, but maybe a lot of people don't, is bears don't actually hibernate.
Let's talk about torpor.
Yeah. And I really like that fact. They go into torpor, which is just their body's going into a deeply relaxed state, right?
Mm-hmm.
They become immobile. They're essentially sleeping, but they have some awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And they give birth while they're in torpor over the winter. And like mustelids also have delayed implantation, but bears, delayed implantation.
I can't talk about it enough because I only learned about it about this time last year.
Really?
About 11 months ago, I learned about delayed implantation. So let me take a stab at it, and you can correct me for the ways that I get it wrong.
Yeah.
In the case of bears rut in May and June, and most of the breeding is going to occur in June. And it's always confused me why, for such a big animal and this long gestation period, that the bear cubs were so small.
Yeah.
This didn't make any sense to me. So the bear cubs are going to be born in February, right? And they're going to be about the size of a pop can.
Yeah, they're pretty small.
8 to 12 ounces. Little tiny, naked little guys.
Cubs. Yeah.
And I was like, how could this be? How could it take so long for a bear to produce something the size of a rat? Like, how is this happening? Well, here's how it's happening. They get bred in the spring, probably by multiple boars.
Yep.
And then if that sow is getting enough calories in October, and she's like, yeah, I'm in good physical condition, I'm living right, like spiritually, financially, emotionally, like
ready to have kids,
ready to go. Then she allows that blastocyst to contact the uterine lining, and then the gestation begins, and then she has this little tiny offspring inside the den while she's in torpor, so that she
feeds them. that entire time.
Yeah.
Like off this body fat, she's...
Right. So she's not eating, she's not drinking, she's not urinating or defecating, but she's producing milk off of her own body fat to nurse these cubs in a protected environment.
Yeah.
It's so smart.
It's so cool. I think bears are so cool.
And then you compare that with elk, who are rutting in September and October. A bull elk will lose a couple 100 pounds sometimes. Yeah. Which might be 30 or more % of his body weight. The cows get run down. They fight. They get injured. So they go from like being at the worst physical condition that they could possibly be in to the time of year where they can't get any food to recover.
Yep.
And then that's when the cows are going to try to, grow this calf inside of her without any type of real nutrition to do so, other than what she was able to store throughout the summer.
Yep.
It's dumber. It's way dumber. Bears are way smarter. Delayed implantation is freaking crazy.
It is so cool.
And the fact that that's not like a staple thing that is taught in biology, like, hey, like, because I think there should be stuff like that. Like, look how cool animals are.
Yeah.
Like, delayed implantation should be at the top of that list.
And actually, I'm interested in and need to look up, like, what sort of hormonal mechanisms make that happen, right? Like, how this fertilized egg gets stored and is just sitting there.
Yeah.
Like,
just
I don't
around.
even know where it's sitting in the uterus and the fallopian tubes.
Yeah.
It's hanging out there until the body signals to implant it.
Yeah.
So some sort of hormonal mechanism is happening there. And like you said, these bears have to be healthy and in good shape and ready to like go into this period of their lives where they'll be gestating. And it's an amazing thing. Like, their hormones, the body signaling that sort of mechanism. Yeah.
My understanding is that it's something around the line of 25,000 calories per day sustained.
Really? That's a lot of calories.
It's a lot of calories. 10 times what, humans are eating at least. So that's what they're needing to consume on a sustained daily basis during that time period. And that is the trigger for
implantation.
Yes.
Wow.
Good grief.
Do you love following the fat bears in the fall?
No, not really.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why not?
Like the social media fat bears?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it the National Forest Service that does it?
Yeah, I think it's actually U.S. Fish and Wildlife or National Parks or something like that. Fat Bear Week.
Yeah.
A lot of those are trash bears, and it actually really saddens me. We did the show last year about the Tahoe bears and how they've become dependent upon people in the Lake Tahoe area for food and for habitat. Right, they're denning under homes. They're exclusively eating trash, dog food, things like that. The bears that they've transplanted have starved to death. Some of them have died from hardware disease, basically just having too much like plastic and junk inside their stomachs. And I think that type of dependency is like the last stage between like wild and domestic.
Yeah, we were talking about that with sheep, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at these bears and saying, all right, if they're dependent upon people, then the next step is them becoming a domestic animal.
Yeah.
And I said, but it's still a bear. So there's going to be conflict, and they're probably going to kill somebody at some point.
Yeah, because they're too close, too comfortable.
Right. And it hadn't happened yet. Well, like 2 months after we recorded that show, bear broke into a woman's house and killed her.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Are these grizzlies?
Black bears.
Black bears.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I can get behind that, even though I do love to laugh at those.
A fat bear looks ridiculous. I love to see a bear scratch his back on a tree. You know, all the things that bears do, I think are great.
They're just fun to watch.
Yeah.
I
they're
would
super goofy.
Love to go up to Alaska sometime and just watch the bears.
They're also another very intelligent animal.
Yeah.
Even besides this type of intelligence that we're talking about with like delayed implantation, as far as problem solving and things like that.
Yep.
One of my favorite lines is about bear-proof trash containers. Yeah.
Did I share that with you or did you share that with me first? Because that is my favorite quote.
I don't know, but yeah, it's so good. So somebody was asking a park ranger why they couldn't come up with a bear-proof trash can. Like, seems doable. And the answer, this elegant answer, was that there's significant overlap between the most intelligent bears and the dumbest humans.
And I think about that all the time.
So if you can make it bear-proof, it's going to be people-proof for far too many.
For a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, and the prime example of that is, videos come out all the time of people going through the parks and feeding, taking pictures next to bears. I don't know.
Yeah.
And bison. And I'm like, what are you doing? Are you trying to die?
Yeah, well, they don't understand.
Yeah.
They don't understand.
Yep.
That this is a wild animal, and it's in this impossibly crazy situation that animal has no chance to adapt to, which is a highway running through its habitat with people hanging out the window. Completely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's just maybe lack of respect for the animals, maybe just due to exposure, like not being exposed. Anyone who grew up on a ranch or has been on a ranch knows how quickly things can turn on you.
Yeah.
And it hurts.
Another good example of animals not adapting to modern stuff is deer strikes with vehicles.
Yep.
Deer didn't evolve with any type of predator that can move that fast.
Yep.
So it doesn't enter into their cognitive process that this type of thing could even be occurring.
Yeah. Yeah. Quickly enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll continue to be interesting as humans continue to expand and put pressure on wildlife, right? And like you're saying, as wildlife essentially becomes domesticated, is relying on humans then, and where does that leave us? Especially if they're dangerous.
Yeah. I've been told that every fifth mammal on the planet is a bat.
Really?
That there are so many bats.
So many species.
Well, and individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I thought, because when you're in the Virgin Islands now, there's obviously birds, not a ton of birds, but wild donkeys, which I thought...
Feral donkeys.
Feral donkeys, yeah. I guess they're not really wild. They are feral. They're kind of cool, though. Yeah. They hang out on the side of the road, but obviously just brought over by people. There's some little tiny deer there.
Are there?
Very, almost like when we passed one on a road, like it was almost like, that's a deer. They're so small.
Are they whitetail? Did you see any bats?
We did. We saw one bat kind of flying over us when we were on a night kayak trip where you get to see the fish. They love the lights, so you're in these kayaks with lights below them.
They are whitetail. They were brought to the Virgin Islands in 1792. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, they're tiny.
Huh.
Yeah.
I saw the giant bats when I was in Australia, the flying foxes.
Oh.
And they make a racket. They lots and lots of vocalizations. But man, they are huge.
Yeah. I've always kind of liked bats.
They're a critical species.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think of the bugs they eat and places they live. I don't know. They're just...
Yeah, I shouldn't say species, but bats are critical.
Yeah.
Lots of species.
Also found out coral is an animal related to jellyfish. That was new to me.
Coral's wild.
Yeah. Coral being underwater, and I know you've been doing a lot of spearfishing. We did a lot of snorkeling while we were in the Virgin Islands, and looking underwater, just surfing over the turtles. We saw an octopus that was really big, and he blended in so well to his environment. You could hardly see him.
Yeah.
Like, I brought Weston over to see him, and it took me, diving down and pointing at where it was for him to, catch, because they blend so well.
Well, they can change their shape, their color, and their texture.
Yeah. Yeah. And a guy kind of tipped us off on the beach that you can find them because they have empty shells surrounding wherever they are. So I'd been snorkeling and beautiful coral, so many beautiful fish. I mean, it's just really cool. And then I saw just a huge grouping of empty shells. I was like, oh, it must be somewhere. And I just sat there. It took me maybe 10 minutes to spot it.
Wow.
And it was just right there in front of me the whole time. I was like, it must be here. It must be here. Yeah.
Way to stick it out.
It was cool. I mean, yeah.
When I was diving with Kylie one time, she found one because this goatfish was swimming around, and she said, this goatfish looks pissed. She said, I think there's an octopus right there.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell that a fish looks angry just by how it's swimming around, but that's just like being clicked into an environment.
Yeah, completely. And I think if you spent enough time, even, snorkeling every day, you'd get really used to what was normal and then what would be out of the norm. But so many cool things. Huge starfish. I love turtles. I should have gotten some fun facts about them. I just think they're so cool.
Yeah. Fun facts about turtles. I'm not the turtle guy, so I don't have any of those in my hip pocket.
The only fun fact I heard recently was not that fun. When Weston said on the old whale ships, they used to take the turtles. They don't have to eat or drink for a year. So they'd catch them and put them on the boat and just kind of store them until they ate them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That wasn't my favorite.
There were desert tortoises in the 29 Palms training area occasionally. And if you saw one, it shut down training.
Yeah.
If one was in the road, you had to wait for it to cross the road. Because if you picked them up, they would evacuate their bowels, and that little bit of moisture might be enough to kill them before they can get back to water.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And 29 Palms is a hot place, right?
Yep.
It's so hot that it was originally an army base, and they tried to just give it back to the U.S. government because they said it was inhospitable for humans. Humans can't live here.
Yeah.
And the Marines are like, so it's a good deal?
We'll take it. And to think there's turtles just crawling across that environment.
Yeah, so we can afford this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the Mojave Green rattlesnake there, which I believe is the only rattlesnake that has neurotoxin and hemotoxin. Oh. And they're also insanely aggressive.
Yeah.
Just a fantastic combination to have around Marines.
I think snakes are the not one animal, but I do fear snakes. I think I definitely don't want to see them in the water. I love swimming. I love being in the water, and I cannot imagine some water moccasin slithering towards me while I'm swimming.
Yeah.
I think they're creepy.
Yeah, Lonesome Dove affected all of us in one way or another about water moccasins. Yeah.
Oh, is that what it is? It's Lonesome Dove trauma.
I think that's probably what it is.
I didn't even know.
That's why you picked that snake. Yeah.
That, and I'm a big hiker. I hike a ton, and cats are the other thing. I don't want to be stalked by a big cat.
I have a phobic response to snakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was great fun for the Australians.
Oh, the Australians think it's funny.
Yeah.
We were down in Australia going to Weston's cousin's beach house, and they're like, oh, no worries. There's a python that lives in the rafters in the beach house.
Very common.
Yeah. He's cool, though.
Keeps the rats away.
Yeah. His name's Monty. Helps with the rodents.
Yeah.
And, just normal day-to-day living for them.
Yeah. I talked to somebody who had... And it is very common for people to have a python in their attic.
Yep.
And I talked to somebody who had a 5-meter, 16-foot long python that had gotten so big that it broke the ceiling and it fell into their house.
Yep.
I would move to Bulgaria. There's...
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing could keep me there.
Well, and you think they must snatch babies every once in a while.
I don't know. I think that's mostly dingoes, right?
Oh, is that? Yeah, I don't know if I'm
making half of a joke here, but
I loved Australia. We had so much fun. I don't know if I'm down for the creepy crawlies there.
Yeah, I mean it didn't seem like much of a drama. It didn't affect the daily lives of the people that I was
No,
around
not
at
at
all.
all.
You know, everybody's still going to walk and hunt barefoot, and it's no big deal.
Yeah.
You know, like Brad Smith was doing this demonstration of shot placement on an archery target that was a pig, and there's this like gray-looking, tarantula-looking spider that looked like a huntsman to me. I didn't know.
Yep.
And he's like poking around all over this target, and everybody's just sitting in this living room watching. And finally, I was like, "Hey, man, like big spider right there." And he looks at it and he goes, "Don't worry about that," and like flops it with his fingers.
Yeah. No
like,
worries.
okay, well, that's cool, that's fine, but you know, I just thought I should bring it up in case it was one of those like it's going to kill you instantly kind of spiders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But not a big deal for them.
But they're afraid to come here because of bears.
Yeah. So I guess
Yeah.
everyone has their own enemy.
Yeah.
But I mean, bears are scary.
Can
Getting
be.
mauled by a bear is scary, but
Yeah.
they're also so cool.
Mm-hmm.
You also, like me on an angry day, you don't want to get mauled by me on an angry day either.
No, not on a good day.
Not on a good day. Well, do you want more animal facts? What do you think?
I want one more.
One more. Okay. Oh, this is a good one to end on. So there's an inverse relationship between heartbeat beat speed to life length for animals.
Say that one more time.
Okay, so I guess first rule, smaller the animal, the higher the heartbeat,
Mm-hmm.
which I think that was just something I've observed. Like you try to take a heart rate on a ferret that comes into a vet clinic and it's beating so fast, or a rabbit, that you can hardly catch it, right? And then compared to a horse heartbeat, which is very slow. But then there's an inverse relationship between heartbeat speed to life length.
Okay.
So
So the faster their heart beats, the less time they're going to live.
exactly. Yeah. So generally we know smaller rodents, animals live a shorter amount of time than generally larger animals.
Hummingbird versus blue whale.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. But kind of interesting, that heartbeat speed, and as humans we're kind of in the middle. Resting heart rates around 60, 70
Yeah.
beats per minute. And you can imagine a tiny rodent. I think they're up in the 200s, like just crazy fast, can hardly hear them. And what made me think about it is you're getting your first ultrasounds and you're pregnant and they're like, yeah, baby's heartbeat is like 170. And that's insane. That's higher than your heart rate ever is as a adult human. Maybe not ever, but
Wow.
definitely more than resting.
After the last year of a lot of focus on diving,
Yeah,
my resting heart rate went from the 70s to the 40s.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think average is right around 60
I've
for
had
humans.
I've had nights where I've hit 42 beats per minute,
Really.
which is crazy low for me.
Is that normal, healthy, fine?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know variability is really good.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're,
My heart rate variability's gotten better too.
yeah.
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 Which is a fantastic feature on Garmin watches.
Yeah. Yeah. And a really great indicator of cardiac health, right? So, that's good.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Pretty awesome.
I guess I just wanted to end my favorite animal fact, which is Colonel Mustard is the best boy.
Is the goodest boy.
He's the goodest
He's
boy.
such a good boy.
I got to spend all weekend with him, and wow, what a good boy he is.
He's a very good boy.
That big lab head.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
You neutered him late, right?
At
so
a
he
year.
kept those big
Yeah.
male features. Oh, he's so cool.
Yeah.
Big paws.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a good boy.
Yep. 3 big paws.
3 big paws. Always talking to you.
Yeah.
And that big, I love a big blocky head. I think male animals, and you'll see it in most male animals, if you wait to castrate a horse a little longer, they'll get the big jaw, big heads. And I love that feature in
Yeah.
a big male animal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was advice that I got from a local veterinarian. It's like, look, any dog in your life is going to have a rough and tumble life. And if you just wait until a year
Yep.
before you neuter them, then they're going to really be able to develop a lot of skeletal and muscular features that they'll
Yeah.
carry their whole lives.
Yep.
They'll be very healthy for that animal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think more and more vets are recommending that, which I'm supportive of. I think it's a good idea. And I mean, we used to neuter and spay so young.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of good things can happen if you let them develop a little bit more. But still get your dog spayed and neutered. I mean,
Yeah.
also important.
Yeah.
But very good to get some of those features too.
A piece of feedback that I commonly hear from fans of the show is that they're always learning stuff from it. And I think just about everybody is going to learn something from this one.
You do?
Yeah.
That's good. For those listeners, I was nervous. I didn't know if I was the most qualified for this.
You did great. You did so good. And it's such a pleasure to have you back on the show, and so fun to get to spend a weekend with you in Weston and have some snow days and eat some food.
Such a good weekend. Thank you, James. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Bye, everybody. The Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Nick's Handmade Boots, a family-owned company in Spokane, Washington. For many of my listeners, you have waited and prepared all year for this. Whether your pursuit is with a rifle or a bow, early or late season, big game or birds, another hunting season is finally upon us. Nick's Boots and the Six Ranch want to wish you luck as you head out into the field. This season, I'm wearing the Nick's Boots Game Breakers, beginning with the archery elk season. Having worn this boot throughout the summer around the Six Ranch, I continue to be impressed with how quiet the boot is. The rough-out leather laces, and 365 stitch-down construction create a simple boot that is supportive, durable, comfortable, and most importantly, quieter than most synthetic hunting boots. For 60 years, Nick's has been building work boots for wildland firefighters, tradespeople, hunters, and ranchers, as well as heritage styles for anyone who values quality footwear made in America. Visit nicksboots.com today to find your next pair of high-quality American-made work boots. Add a pair of boots and a work belt to your cart and use the code 6RANCH. That's the number 6 and the word ranch to receive the belt for free. I just want to take a second and thank everyone who's written a review, who has sent mail, who's sent emails, who's sent messages. Your support is incredible. And I also love running into you at trade shows and events and just out on the hillside when we're hunting. I think that that's fantastic. I hope you guys keep adventuring as hard and as often as you can. Art for the Six Ranch Podcast was created by John Chatelain and was digitized by Celia Harlander. Original music was written and performed by Justin Hay, and the Six Ranch Podcast is now produced by Six Ranch Media. Thank you all so much for your continued support of the show, and I look forward to next week when we can bring you a brand new episode.